I got a new apartment. I'll make it look better soon, I promise. So I am not a big fan of the comedian Amy Schumer. Not in a way that I make it my entire personality, because I know those people exist and I do not really want to associate with them. She just doesn't happen to be my type of comedian, and that's not a crime. I'm not the arbiter of comedy. She's just not high on my list. I think specifically with Amy, it is not what she says, but rather how she expects to get away with what she said because of who she is. A comedian with an ego? I know, that's crazy, but stay with me. Recently, Amy Schumer was a host for the 2022 Oscars, where her jagged sense of humor was put on full display. And she said a lot of things that night that just didn't really agree with me. Unfortunately, most of the conversations about that night were focused on something else. You might have missed it, but there was this little thing that happened that was maybe a little bit more attention grabbing. I'm not going to talk about it because it has been discussed to death, but that little slap really overshadowed everything else that happened that night, including a lot of Amy's behavior. We're going to start out small and then we'll work our way up towards her worser actions, but we are starting our little tour with a good old classic, joke plagiarism. Amy is no stranger to being accused of stealing jokes, and over the years, the pattern has become harder to ignore. It's usually the routines of smaller comics that get stolen, which gives more credibility to the idea that Amy is repurposing them for her larger audience. In her monologue, Amy made a joke about the actor Leonardo DiCaprio's dating history that went like this.
And I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, what can I even say about him? He's done so much to fight climate change and leave behind a cleaner, greener planet for his girlfriends.
It's making light on the fact that Leo doesn't really date models over the age of 25. And yeah, that is a weird thing he does, and it has roots in a much deeper systemic issue regarding how men treat women. But Amy just drops that bomb and moves on. She cashed the comedy check and ran out the door. But oops, turned out this joke originated from a viral tweet only 4 months ago. I remember seeing and liking this tweet on my timeline in 2021. So then hearing this joke from Amy, and it's only reworded a little bit differently, it's pretty hard to not connect the dots. Is stealing jokes the worst crime imaginable? No. Does it speak to Amy's character as a comedian? Yeah. The concept of repeating jokes but louder does not make anyone look good, ever. But because it's impossible to prove that Amy saw that tweet and then included it in her material, we can really only surmise this based on assumptions. That and her extensive track record of doing that exact thing. But I digress. The next weird moment was when Amy tried to do some crowd work and ended up making a scene with so much secondhand embarrassment that it made me want to dig a hole in the floor and hibernate for a year. Amy approaches Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons, two engaged actors that were both up for Oscars this year. They're both extremely talented, and I really like them both. The fact that they were both up for Oscars is a really cute, celebrity couples moment. I don't know, I think it's cute. And then it got ruined. Amy calls Kristen a seat filler and pulls her out of her seat and tries to interview Jesse. The funny part is that they were both up for Oscars, so she's not really a seat filler at all. To be fair, this joke has legs, and it could have worked if it was done differently. It's not often that both parts of a celebrity couple are up for an award, so picking a favorite, there's comedy there. It's plausible to make a joke out of that. But Amy just seems to, push Kirsten out of the way against her will, and it led to this photo going semi-viral of how awkward the whole thing seemed. And there was some pushback to this because of how rude it felt and how unfairly Kirsten was treated, especially since she was a nominee that night. But after seeing some of the backlash, Amy quickly posted about how the bit was staged and planned from the start, and the Schumer defense squad online considered her absolved, even going as far as to write condescending news articles about it. My personal conspiracy is that, no, this was not staged. Are you kidding me? These two are phenomenal actors. They're really good. There's a reason they were both up for an award that night. And if it's true that they knew this was happening, I'm guessing that they would not have looked so awkward and confused. You can see Kirsten resist Amy's initial grab, and she's confused as to why she's being pushed back. And Jesse responds to Amy's riff by saying, "You know that's my wife, right?"
You know that was my wife, Amy?
You're married to that seat filler?
And the entire thing feels like an improv show where one kid is just trying to be the crowd's favorite. It's possible that, yes, this was planned in some way and the two of them knew that something would happen, but it's pretty clear to me that they didn't know all of the details and that this moment kind of caught them off guard. The execution just feels very painful to see, and I just don't really think that they were in on Amy's joke. Also, big surprise, this joke is also unoriginal. When Neil Patrick Harris hosted the Oscars, he feigned surprise at Steve Carell being nominated for a serious role, even calling him a seat filler. And Steve played along because it was all in good fun. Did Amy steal this joke? Again, we can't tell. But if she did, she should have stolen it harder because one works and one doesn't. Okay, let's see what else happened. It's a lot, I know, so let's speed through. Amy made an incest joke about Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal after listing a bunch of celebrity couples, including them, and saying it was a night for lovers. When addressing the animated picture nominees, Amy made a joke about how they were only for children in front of a room of industry professionals who work on these movies for years. I don't know, that also seemed pretty rude. That's the kind of joke that would kill at like a PTA meeting full of tired moms. Maybe not at the Oscars. But overall, Amy just had an awkward performance and nothing else really happened that night, so I think we can move on. Then the big slap happened. It disrupted the night and it threw everyone off, which is understandable. Like, it was pretty weird. And because that stood out so much, it made everything else Amy did seem kind of unimportant. This was kind of her opportunity to keep quiet and stay out of the spotlight. But when has a comedian ever wanted to do that? I will now read Amy's official statement via her Instagram caption. I think we can all agree that the best way to unpack what happened is to stream my series at Life and Beth Hulu and see me on tour this fall. But for real, still triggered and traumatized. I love my friend at Chris Rock and believe he handled it like a pro, staying up there and gave an Oscar to his friend at Questlove, and the whole thing was so disturbing. So much pain in at Will Smith. Anyway, I'm still in shock and stunned and sad. I'm proud of myself and my co-hosts, but yeah, waiting for this sickening feeling to go away from what we all witnessed. What stands out to me about all of that is triggered and traumatized. Also the fact that she tagged every celebrity involved, but mostly the triggered and traumatized part. Seeing an act of physical violence, whether it be in person or on screen, can be triggering to people who have experienced or witnessed domestic abuse. This may just have been like a celebrity slap to some people, but for people who have gone through something even remotely similar to that, I can understand how it might be painful and, yes, traumatizing to witness. And Amy almost frames this as if she is one of those people who was personally affected by this. And then a few days later, during her own comedy special, she makes fun of it. I love comedians. In the next stand-up special after the Oscars, Amy says, I was feeling myself. Then Ali makes his way up, and it was just a fucking bummer. Amy's comment of, I was feeling myself, really makes it clear that like all of her other actions were totally fine in her book, like smooth as silk up until this whole slap thing happened. All I can say is that it was really sad, and I think it says so much about toxic masculinity. Amy, you have to say a little bit more than that for it to count. You can't just drop the words toxic masculinity and think you did something. Are you going to go into any more detail about it? Was really upsetting, but I think the best way to comfort ourselves would be for me to say the Oscars joke that I wasn't allowed to say on TV. No, Amy, that is not how we comfort ourselves. You were the host when a very controversial and uncomfortable scene happened. You are in a very specific seat to say something about this, to advocate for something, and have your words carry extra weight. Now is not the time to end. Great. It's an Alec Baldwin murder joke. That's what she was desperate to tell us. Awesome. I'm sure we're all very grateful you had to share that. Amy is no stranger to criticism. Like I said at the beginning of this video, there are people who devote their entire lives to tearing her down. Sometimes because of her joke stealing, but sometimes because she's just a woman. And apparently that is a quality that a lot of people don't like in their comedians. This Oscars host job was Amy's first big comeback after going on maternity leave and then dealing with a pretty serious surgery. If I'm putting myself in her shoes, I think there must have been a lot of pressure to come back swinging and be shocking and controversial. And I think she just went into this with maybe a little bit too much enthusiasm to stand out. I say this because I'm not making this video because I hate Amy Schumer. I'm really just neutral on her. And yeah, her performance during the Oscars was weird and like some of the jokes were rude, but that's okay. Like, we're allowed to flop sometimes. Like, jokes bomb often. That alone is not worth criticism. The worst part for me is that this slap gave her an opportunity to drop the act, maybe talk about some of her old jokes, but mostly just say something new. And instead, she just doubles down. In conclusion, it's okay that Amy's performance was a bit of a flop, but I really wish that she had taken this opportunity to change course a little bit, and I'm disappointed that instead she tried to use it to her advantage. But yeah, that's the video. I think we're done. Okay, fine. Real quick, here's my slap discourse take. Okay, I'm done. No more slap talk. Do not tell anyone that I had an opinion on this. But anyway, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe or follow me on my social medias if you can't get enough of me. That was weird to say. Of course, thank you to my beautiful patrons for supporting me. I really can't thank you enough every week to know that there are just strangers out there in the world who support me and like me enough to chuck me a few dollars. It really does mean a lot. If you want your name tattooed on my video forever, feel free to click the link in my description to go to my Patreon and give me a few dollars. I will spend it very wisely, most likely on a cat in the near future. But yeah, this is a new apartment. I'm gonna work on it a little bit more. There's not a whole lot of furniture, but like eventually it's gonna look good. This is embarrassing. I've been looking at other YouTubers' backgrounds to like try and figure out what they do and like see if I like it, but they're all so well put together and I'm a little gremlin boy. Like, I don't know. I don't know. If you have interior design tips, leave them below. But that's going to be it from me. Stay safe. I love you lots, and I'll see you here next week. Bye.